Oh, and we're live. That took a long time to connect.
I
Hi,
know.
Madhuri.
Hi, Bhakti. How are you?
I'm good. We're we are going to be killjoys today. We're going to be what will be considered mean, which is the title of our live today is about the No Kings protest. White feminism fail. Why we can't get behind the No Kings protests, and we'll talk about that. But I think as people are coming in, I just want us to, since this is a live stream, I think it's always feels good to touch base with you, Madhuri, especially about all the things that are going on, just the general news and the poly crisis, multi crisis, madness,
My
all
goodness.
world over. So, a basic what we can say, the basic recap: the world is still an absolute mess. All I see is the great supreme leader Trump, talking about how Iran is begging for ceasefire talks. And then, like, the next line everywhere I read is how the Iranians are saying, no, we're not in any talks and we had never called for a ceasefire or whatever.
I
So
know.
it's really a terrible game. And I think I was feeling cynical, but I've come to realize that most of this is to do with him trying to stabilize the stock markets and fuel prices, right?
Well, I mean, the fuel prices are at this catastrophic high rate. And of course, the effects of it are being borne by countries
Mm,
that are to the US right now.
yeah.
And stabilize the stock market, I also think that there is this huge ego situation where there is this desire to show control,
Mhm.
where there is no control whatsoever. There's a desire to show a victory, which I think will actually be quite a crucial condition for the war ending.
Yeah.
He has to appear victorious and in control, and he's
Yeah.
not either of those things.
Mhm.
um so I think that a lot of this is also that kind of posturing, and it's not kind of bizarre, it's just absolutely ridiculous that we are that we are in a world where he is resorting to lies to claim that kind of victory,
Mhm.
and to preserve his own self-image, and everybody knows he's lying.
I
Like, that's
know.
a bizarre thing for me, you
Yeah.
know.
I think there are some people who don't know that. It's like, I do think one exists.
Interesting. I mean, and we can't be that siloed. Everybody knows he's lying. I mean, his popularity rate has plummeted. It's the lowest it's ever
Okay.
been. It's in like the 30s or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
Since he's assumed office the second time, the war is extremely
Unpopular.
unpopular. Yeah, so I think most people
Yeah.
won't really believe it, and in fact, we need him to be lying a lot of the times, as we've said. But
Mm.
yes, these negotiations never happen. These
Yeah.
presents never come, and yeah,
Yeah. And to touch based on what we did last Thursday, we talked about the cyber warfare, virtual warfare, new battlefronts, AI videos, Lego videos, memes, and that stuff is still going. It's pounding away, and so
really.
while that's going on, I think, as of course the material losses for the Iranians are still pretty staggering, and it just breaks my heart every time to think about, like, universities being bombed in Isfahan and stuff like that. But good news regarding Cuba, not good news, but good news for all of us who are kind of obsessed with news and wanting to learn what's happening. This kind of, the blockade was sort of broken when flotilla sailed there, and some reporters have come and talked about it. Nathan Robinson at Current Affairs had written about it. So, there's a lot of energy around that, and there's some attention, and it's not in complete silence, right? And of course, I want to remind people that today it's April 1st, April Fool's Day. Nothing to be feeling fooled about. They're fooling us all the time. But this month will be 4 years since the war started in Sudan, where started
Oh
with the 4th
wow,
of
is
June.
that right?
Yeah. So, the silences, they keep compounding when it comes to Sudan. And then now, when it comes to Palestine, very little out there news from Palestine, except horrific news such as the death penalty being imposed on specifically just for Palestinians, many of them who are held without charge, who
Mhm.
are held for barely anything. And I think that's kind of upset a lot of people. There's been a lot of statements and outpouring of criticism around that. And then the worst part, and this is why I'm wearing this kafia, which is Lebanon. I think the Gaza playbook is fully in effect in Lebanon. Horrible stuff is going on. Hospitals, civilians, children, healthcare facilities, journalists being killed. Now we're
Oh,
getting
yes,
journalists
we're there.
being killed. And yeah, it's just
But
the
yeah,
silence around there is pretty intense too.
and I wanted to add this staggering statistic that I read when I was working on a piece that we published recently,
Mhm.
which is that 1 in every 4 Lebanese are displaced now. The number of displaced is well over 1 million.
Yeah.
And we recently published a piece at the POLIS project that I want to share, which makes a very convincing case for the fact that Israel is waging an ecocide in Lebanon in addition to everything else. And we know they did this in
Mhm.
Gaza, completely rendering large
Yeah.
swaths of farmland unarable and completely crippling and destabilizing the backbone or a huge economic um, front of the country,
Yeah.
and causing environmental damage, including through the use of white phosphorus that is
Oof.
multi-generational, indiscriminate, irreversible. So that's the news in Lebanon. And the other thing that I wanted to mention that happened is the UN diplomat Mohammad Safa, who resigned recently from his post at the UN, saying that he had to leak the information that the UN was indeed preparing for a nuclear weapon to be dropped in Iran. And that this was the information that he wanted to bring forth. And so he leaked this information and resigned because he said he can't, in good conscience, continue to be a part of the UN. So there is all of this other stuff that has been happening that, it's really difficult to keep track of. I don't think I saw any of this in the mainstream news. A lot of this is information that I uh, end up getting because my algorithms serve them to me. But overall, it's a bleak and difficult situation. And as the war in Iran progresses, I mean, we are just descending into a spiral faster than we can control. And it
Yeah.
looks a bit bleak.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I always had the logic, like in some way, like there's something crippling, patriarchal, and masculinist about logics of victory. But it's like, if this is going to happen, let Iran just win. At this point, it's just too much. It's just preposterous. The
Yeah.
destruction, that they're causing everywhere. It's beyond, and it feels so. You feel powerless. You feel like, there's no logic, there's no adult in the room. It's bizarre.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. We have
That's
lots of.
actually a good segue, the powerlessness, into our topic of conversation.
Oh
Nicely
God,
done.
tough gig, Madhuri. You're okay, so we wanted to talk about the No Kings protests today, and thanks to everyone who has joined. And essentially, the No Kings protests, they're called the No Kings protests, happened over the weekend on Saturday. And these were not the first ones. There is a precedent to these particular protests. There was a No
Third
Kings
one.
one before, it's a third one. And it also has some roots in the women's marches that started when Trump came into office. And basically, we are not feeling it. And we're not feeling it. It was 8 million people. That's what were the projected numbers. And that's extraordinary. It was a lot of people across the US, people you don't usually see joining protests. And everyone came out in droves, lots and lots of signs, lots and lots of outfits, and the whole thing. And I love the solidarity building that happens with protests. I love that people come together. I love that suddenly everybody's talking about politics. And I don't know if all those things happened in all those places, but we had a lot of discontentment and lots of issues. So let's start with that.
Yeah,
What
I
are
think
your
I want
Why are we being killjoys?
I don't even know where to start, but a good way for me to enter this conversation, I think, to respond is to pick up on something you said, which is that this protest was attended by a lot of people you don't really see at protests. And to me, that automatically makes it not a protest. Because I think
No.
here we're talking about, okay, I'm not saying this in a cynical way, but I think the truth of the matter is that when you think about what a protest is, it is something that is necessarily inconvenient and difficult. And
Sure.
this was like, oh, we're all gonna get together and we're gonna get together here, and the cops are gonna be here too, they're gonna be protecting us, and don't forget to make your signs. So it felt very like, I think a lot of commentators have used the word choreographed, and it
Mm.
was the sort of choreography and the ease and the convenience, which is like antithetical to what a protest is. And I've also seen a lot of commentators rightly say that it should be called a rally or a parade, because that's what it is. Because do you think that these are the people who would be there when things get really difficult and when it's actually kind of dangerous for you to be on the streets? For example, the people who are organizing in Minnesota
Yes.
against ICE? Probably not, right? These are the people who feel really powerless and hopeless, as we had said earlier. Also, I mean, of course, most of the attendees were white women in their 40s in particular. So, yes, I understand that everybody is sort of besieged with this feeling of powerlessness, but this is maybe the reason why people are there, just to feel something. But to call it a protest and to say that it had the inconvenience and the
Mm.
risk that a protest carries isn't it really, for me.
Yeah.
And I wanted I was thinking about, why it bothered me so much and why we titled this no feminist, I'm sorry, white feminist fail.
No feminists, really.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
Is because it was just, nothing about the No Kings rally
Hmm.
challenges any system that is put in place, right? Because
Yeah.
ultimately, the systems that are put in place, um, any whatever governance structure in the US is a system that centers these white women. It benefits them, it props them up,
Yeah.
and it has always profited off and exploited people of color, immigrants, particularly immigrant women of color. It's a system that is designed to exclude them. That's not what they are challenging.
No.
They are just saying, we don't want Trump. We don't like this orange guy,
Yeah.
without really having any sort of notion that this system actually has put him in place. And it is a system that is designed by, fortified by the very people that they have put in power, like Clinton, like Obama, and Kamala, who they would all vote for again.
Yeah.
Like, these are the people that have put this system in. They don't have a problem with that. And I just wanted to read from the like No King's website. I was trying and understand.
Oh, really? Yeah, somebody here says a protest without demands is more so a parade, and that's exactly right. Thank you,
Exactly.
Naomi. It's totally true. No, I think no, you're raising a lot of points. I mean, I'm going to oppose something and say that 8 million people, I understand that it is a majority white women, and it's a majority white person demographic. It is a lot of, we keep saying white women. And of course, here we have to qualify that it's not the race we're talking about. We're talking about
Yeah.
a particular strand of feminism that is very white, very, very mainstream and very liberal, which is why you also mentioning the Democrats right here.
Yeah.
And because it's this kind of mainstream liberal feminism that is not intersectional at all.
Yeah.
There is no attention to class, there is no attention to race, there is no attention to sexuality, there's no attention to ability, disability, all of these kinds of things. So they're not really engaging across a wide swath. It's really liberals. And why we know they are liberals is because we have been shouting from the rooftops at these liberals for the last 2.5 years, where mangled bodies of Palestinian children have been
Indeed.
piling up on our screens. I know people like to say we are bearing witness to a genocide. I'm just going to say we've been consuming and bystanding through a genocide. And all of this Where was all this outrage then? There was some protests then, not 8 million. There was
Oh,
some
and definitely not
protests
white.
in small places. Say that
No.
again.
And definitely not white feminist protests. They were like
No,
actual protests,
no,
inconvenient protests, protests that were
absolutely.
being, violently dispersed by the NYPD. People paid material prices for participating in those protests. You know what I mean? Like there was a real cost to immigration status, to your job, to like there were people were making material sacrifices, and that has just this is not that Bhakti.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know. I know. Somebody's pointing out that the age isn't the majority. I think in general, we can say this was a diverse set of races and ages and genders and sexualities, whatever, across the board. I think there were lots and lots of people. But what we're concerned here with the anchoring philosophy of some of these things. And here, which is why we choose to use the word white feminism, because A, these protests have a history. They have a history when Hillary Clinton was standing against Trump back in whatever year that was, 2012? No.
Oh,
Yes. Yeah,
ye-
yeah.
yes.
And when she lost, at that time, I still remember the Pantsuit Nation group, which was thousands and thousands of people. And, just think about the image of the pantsuit. And I know it's supposed to be a nod to Hillary and all that kind of stuff and her pantsuits. But really, it's about a type of mainstream achievement, what Angela Davis calls glass ceiling feminism, right?
Absolutely.
And it's about kind of lean in, get your jobs, shatter the glass ceiling, and then leave everybody else behind. And we're talking about this particular demographic that we all have in our lives. We all have them in our families. We are brown women. We're not American. We have them in our lives. We have them in our communities. We have them in our families. We have friends like that. We know lots of people who work in banks, who works in publishing, who work here, who work there, who are extremely liberal and who are absolutely 100% part of what we would call, who believe in women's empowerment, in feminist thought and stuff like that, but in a very siloed way. And
Correct.
their silence has been so loud during Palestine that suddenly, if you're upset that there is a war being raged, so you liked it when the war was being raged by Biden and Kamala, that war was okay, and
That
this
war,
war is not?
that's exactly right. But I also want to say that this war is also okay. They were
Yeah,
not out there protesting any of the US Israeli wars. That has not come up. You're right. Like that war is okay. And actually, it's just better if there's a difference in if it's tonally different and
mhm,
if it's not so overt and in my face. That's really what they're saying. There was no real protest against genocide, Palestine, Israel, Iran, like that gas prices, like any of the stuff that we brought up, I did not see anything major over
yeah,
there. There was
yeah, yeah.
nothing. Maybe there were some cities that had some Palestine solidarity, but it was all so, I mean, you had to really ferret it out.
I know.
It just wasn't
There
there.
was a lot of ICE stuff, I think.
Yes,
There
there
was
was.
anti-ICE elements, and I think fair and fine, you know.
I also think that, you know, we have seen what happens when there is a real protest. I think Minnesota, I'm not saying white people cannot protest. I think the Minnesota protests against ICE are a perfect counterexample to the No Kings Parade, right? Because, like, we lost two people standing up to ICE who were doing their job as observers.
Yeah.
That is the risk of standing up. We've seen the way that Minnesotans have showed up for their for their immigrant neighbors, for their communities of color. We've seen the violent ways in which those protests were dispersed. We've seen how inconvenient it was for them to
Mhm.
stand up and do this, and how actually threatening it was to the status. Now, that's the thing, right, about the demand. It was a clear demand. It was a very specific goal, and the system began to shake. Like
Yeah.
it really, really started to shake the system. That is not what No Kings was about. There was
Yeah.
nothing. Like what has changed? We don't even know what they're asking for, first of all. And there has been no systemic change.
Yeah.
And like you said, this is not even the first No Kings protest. Like, is it possible for us to chart out what changed between the first one and now?
I know.
Absolutely not. So
Yeah.
I think that it's not that, like I think the show of people is good and it's meaningful, but that does not count in my mind as a victory against
Mhm.
the system, or a
Yeah.
shock to the system.
Sure, 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 sure. No, no, no. You're right. What is there to show from the? I'm going to say Women's March. And
Please.
Charles reminded me, 2016. It started in 2016 was all that, and the Pantsuit Nation, all
Yeah.
the all the women, and as somebody said, pussy hats. The full paraphernalia was there of feminism, right? All the vibes, all the feminist stuff, the personal is political and all this, and all good, and it felt very exciting then. Okay, and full disclosure, I was there. Okay, I went,
Me too.
and
I went too.
right, because it was all like we couldn't believe it. It was so like shocking what had happened. And then what? Since then to the last three No Kings marches, what has shifted? And everybody tells me you can't undermine a moment, you can't undermine such moments, because you have to take that, you have to consolidate that energy and turn it into power. And organizers, activists, politicians, and so on are supposed to go and mobilize. And when there is such a thing, you have to turn it into actual political power and lead into more strategic ways of doing stuff. And this is what you're kind of complaining didn't happen. Well, let's start at the beginning, right? What is No Kings? Madhuri, I know you have a real peeve
Dying
about
to read this out. Yeah, yeah. I'm dying to read it down.
I'm teeing you up for your
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'll just read from their website. About No Kings. Um, so this is about the second term. Now President Trump has doubled down. His administration is sending masked agents into our streets, terrorizing our communities. They are targeting immigrant families, profiling, arresting, and detaining people without warrants, threatening to overtake elections, gutting healthcare, environmental protections, and education when families need them the most, rigging maps
Hmm,
to silence voters, ignoring mass shootings, driving up the cost of living, handing out massive giveaways to billionaire allies, billions of our tax dollars on missile strikes abroad. We don't know where, just abroad. While driving up the cost of living again. So the president thinks his rule is absolute, but in America, we don't have kings. And we won't back down against chaos, corruption, and cruelty. So our peaceful movement is only getting bigger. It's more than just a slogan, it's the foundation our nation was built on. So we're going to do this, blah, blah, blah. And the thing is that everything that they are attributing to President Trump is what every president in American history has done. Like,
and
I'm not.
even the abroad I'm okay with the abroad part, because literally Americans just drop whatever wherever,
Anything.
killing and
Yeah.
everywhere. Yeah,
Seriously. And it's
yeah,
just, to me, it's really shocking because it's like, which president has not targeted immigrant families? Which president has not gutted healthcare? Which president has not used taxpayer money to drop missiles abroad? They have
yeah,
all done it. So, by that token, every one of your presidents is a king. And to say that you have doubled down, that Trump has doubled down and he's an absolutist, I mean, he is, sure, but in the sense that he's not doing anything that other presidents haven't done before. And certainly, he's walking a path that has been paved by other presidents, including presidents that they would have voted for. This is my problem. And I
yeah.
think about, like, you also mentioned Hillary Clinton, and I will never forget this quote that she made in February. She was speaking somewhere and she says, and I quote, more people were deported under my husband, Bill Clinton, and Barack Obama without killing American citizens and without putting children into detention camps than were in the first Trump term or this first year of Trump's second term. So clap, 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 clap. My husband and Barack have done more deportations and have caused less American deaths. I mean, this is absolutely
I
ridiculous.
know, I remember this.
Yeah. So it's almost like, and these are the people that would vote for Hillary.
I know,
So this is where I really start to have a problem, because
I know.
it's just, um, you are absolutely fine actually with everything that you are stating that you have a problem against. And you have, again, no actionable way to stop these things that you have an issue with from happening.
I
There's
know.
no, here's what we're doing. This is what, well, we're going to organize, we're going to do a Know Your Rights campaign. No, there's nothing. There was absolutely no threat to the system. And all they're saying is
Sure.
just please replace this orange person with another person who looks different.
Yeah.
And just does
What is the origin of the kings thing? Because as I keep retorting snarkily to people. I mean, here's a democratically elected leader. I understand we hate the electoral college and the US system is rigged and etc., etc. But we have a leader that has been democratically elected. He's not a king. I understand that his policies are 100% fascist, etc., etc. All that stuff, I get it. But this obsession with royalty, I actually don't follow. And there's something to do with the aesthetics of this particular protest where they're obsessed with slogans about crowns, no kings, no this. And I barely understand where all this is, where is all this coming from. There was also, and I don't know, I should have saved it, but there's also these women dressed up as Marie Antoinette,
Oh no.
saying let them eat cake and stuff like that. I mean, yeah, just absurd stuff. I'm going to try to share screen and see if we can um,
Well, I think
look at this. This is the photo that they're saying went viral. Okay, I'm of course not signed into the Atlantic, and I never will. So this is the Lady Liberty the Lady Liberty stuff. And there's a tons of posters of the Statue of Liberty. And there's all this play with the crowns, royalty. There's just an obsession with royalty. And at some point, one has to unpack, like, why, what's this about? So I don't understand
I,
what is going on.
I mean, I think that it's just, well, I think what their response would be is that they say that no kings is that the power belongs to the people, right? We don't actually have a monarch or whatever, which is like, okay. But this obsession with crowns and queens, I think there is just a general aspiration among people to be a part of the ruling elite, you
Mhm.
know, especially among liberals, right? Like there is this idea,
Sure.
again, to go back to the system, that whatever we have in place is good. The table is great. Just make more space for me at the table instead of break it down, which is what people say. But and I think that that's what it is a symbolism of. It's like, well, I want a crown too. Like a crown is for the people. It's just like, well,
Yeah.
that's really not the case. And I think to me, it really speaks of a sort of aspiration to be a part of the ruling class. And I think the poor Lady Liberty who has just been instrumentalized
I
in this.
never I lived in New York for like 25 years. Never known of Statue of Liberty to have this revolutionary potential and trotted out in marches. I
To
mean,
me,
I don't get it.
it's always just such a symbol of America. Like it's the other thing. There's the bald eagle, and then there's this.
Yeah.
There's Lady Liberty.
Fine, fine. So it's patriotic.
Well, yes, but I think that it is reinforcing the idea of America again, right? We're saying that that's actually, there is an America that we all believe in, and, it stands for all these things, and blah, 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 blue, doo, and this is how immigrants came in through Ellis Island and all that stuff. But it is reinforcing, again, this idea of America. It's this nostalgic idea of America. It is that America, it does not at all say, well, because you also see how Iran has been wielding this imagery of the Lady Liberty with like a Satan head, and in their AI propaganda videos, like missiles are being launched, and anytime they show how American imperialism is crippling, they show the Statue of Liberty falling. So it
Yeah.
is really around the world a symbol of America's imperialism, which is couched under this language of like freedom and liberty, right? Like
Totally.
famous freedom isn't free situation. So when you see people using it in this way, and then Iran using it in this way, to me, it is here just reinforcing this idea of America. It's like, not this America, this America, and it's
Yeah.
like, no, that doesn't exist. It
By the way,
never
do we have
does.
an Iranian AI video about the No Kings protest? My God, they're going to slaughter. They're going, they're going to kill it. Whatever however they, because they critique like every fiber of American
Yeah,
culture, and they really take a hammer to the patriotism.
yeah,
So it's bizarre.
yeah,
And somebody here is saying it's extremely nationalist. The overhead
yeah.
views show tons of American flags. It's very frustrating. Of course, it's absolutely one of the most frustrating things about it is because this is a country that in the name of that flag is literally bombing the hell out of people, is complicit, not just complicit, is actively part of a genocide in Palestine,
Yeah.
now in Lebanon. And here we go. It's like you can't. And there were a lot of signs that were about a nostalgic time, a before time, you know. And in general, there's this idea that somehow before Trump, we lived in a kind of paradise. There's a sort
Yeah,
of
yeah.
amnesia. Whereas in my mind, a protest, any resistant slogan has to be future moving.
Yeah.
Palestine will be free. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Abolish ICE, whatever that is, like
Mm.
do something or move something. And, I'm sure some of those signs were there somewhere, but it was absolutely dominated by extreme levels of patriotism, a lot of what I called faux or feminism light, faux feminism, feminism light, okay, which is this kind of fake nods to the matriarchy and
I'm
you
gonna
know
cry. I'm going to cry.
like, give back our get time to get to a matriarchy, or
Bring
just
back our girls.
yeah. So yeah, stuff like that, and then there's also this whole other thing about no kings, only queens, and
Oh
that's
my
supposed to be
God.
an innuendo as well, like a cute gay joke. It's just a mess, because and it shows on some level that the organizing around it, I mean, organizing protests like this, in campaigning for them, bringing people out in droves, it's not necessarily easy to do. And the messaging begins very early, and a lot of the groups that were part of organizing this, I looked up, and I hate to diss, but were young white folks with degrees from Harvards and Yales, and who have got policy degrees and stuff like that. And this, if they are leading this, this is a huge problem. So we can't bottle that energy, that 8 million energy. We can't bottle it because it lacks a fundamental educational anchor. There is no cause. Everyone is, people are just kind of feeling their way through. I don't know. They're having fun, and people should have fun. But it's just infuriating, and I remain infuriated that there was lots and lots of this. You know there was so we are continuing to live through one of the most violent eras, and having a literal genocide being broadcast, and yet this is what gets everybody out. This is what gets all these people that have been silent in my life, that I have mostly cut off.
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
that's what gets them out there posting photos. Hey.
So that's the thing. I think what you said, like, it really lacks the transformative power that protests and this kind of outpouring is supposed to have, right? So it is just you come, you take a few photos, you've got some signs, and your signs don't really say anything. It's just like something funny and something cute, and it doesn't certainly does not challenge the system. In fact, it reinforces it. In fact, it says that it's a good system. Let's just keep it up, and let's not do this. It doesn't name anyone except Trump. It doesn't. It doesn't implicate any it doesn't, as you said, advance any new vision. It doesn't challenge American imperialism. It doesn't have any sort of imaginative capacity. So it is really like it's like a flash mob. You all come, you do your little dance, and then you leave, and you
Mhm.
leave. And that is not a protest. And we have seen and we have participated in real protests.
Sure.
So I think that, like, to say, I think there is very deep desire for people to feel like they are doing something. I'm going to come back to this.
Mhm.
This kind of a protest is just an easy way out, where you can feel like you came and you did some activism, and you engaged in some light activism and some
Sure.
general revolutionary work, and then you can just, like, pat yourself on the back, and then you can go get a glass of wine and just go
Yeah.
back to your life.
Well,
Well,
there was, remember the
mm,
Doug Emhoff,
yes,
Kamala Harris's
you have
husband?
that image.
What was it? I don't have it actually, because it
So
was
I'm going to
I
tell
saw it
people.
on Instagram. Basically, Doug Emhoff was at a protest, and he held up a sign saying, if it had been Kamala,
If Kamala were president, we'd be at brunch right now.
that's what you want to do? No, we would be watching more Palestinian children,
Exactly. But then we
being
wouldn't
killed.
be bothered by it. Like, certainly that group of people that came out on the street wouldn't have been bothered by it anyway.
I
You
mean,
know?
it nailed it. It nailed it for me. This thing that he was saying absolutely 100% nailed it. And shame on them for talking like this. Shame on this notion of the liberal haven brunching. What is this? What is this ritual? I mean, this is like, it's not 2002. I mean, it's like, come on already.
I
It's
think our
it's
next
over.
live is why brunches, white feminists,
White
why we can't
feminist
get behind
brunching.
brunch.
No, because it is like that. All these symbols, these images, they do come out of like some sort of culture and TV in the early 2000s. Shows like Sex and the City, which were
Oh, yeah.
pure white feminism, white women
Mhm.
empowerment.
Mhm.
And which is about, like, they always meet for brunch. And they have this cosmopolitans, and
Mm.
there's a lot of that has been developed over time with more shows, more movies, more TV, more pop culture,
Right.
and we are left with this hollow notion of what feminism is, and it's really, yeah, it's depressing,
So the
honestly.
whole thing was theater, the whole thing was performance. I just want to say that Kamala is not president. Everyone's still going to brunch. And I'm almost certain that everyone went to brunch after No Kings. Like, I really don't think that people just went back home.
Yeah.
The question is really of how to, this is, a very superficial way to bring people together. It achieves the goal if the goal is to simply bring people together. But the question always remains, and then what? And then what? And then what? Now what? Um, we are still not having, we didn't even have these many protests for when the Epstein files were being released before the American and Israeli attack in Iran. We did not. Nobody was on the street. Where were these women? I'm sorry, but where were you when you read about other women being trafficked and children being,
Right.
raped? Like, where were you? How is this? So it's just, to me, so there's so many ways in which one can expose the hollowness and the facade
Mhm.
of the No Kings rally.
Sure.
Uh, and I do think that, as you said, the deafening silence around other topics and other issues, and the lack of outrage, and the absence of any kind of mass mobilization for the past, whatever, 2 years. Um, Also, the fact that we don't know what their demands are. We don't know what changes have happened. Even with the Women's March, I mean, um, we
Yeah,
don't know what the demands were and what has happened.
absolutely.
Um, so these are, I guess, ways to come together and feel seen, but that's all they are. To call it a protest is far from the truth.
Mhm.
Maybe it's just some kind of like group
What it
group
Yeah, I don't
therapy.
know what it is. Should I try to, let's see if I can show these actually. I
Yeah.
found the Marie Antoinette one, and then we can sign out after that. I don't know how. A window. Okay. Do you see it?
Oh God, I
Let
do.
them eat cake. I'm just gonna stop sharing that because I just feel bad, because it shows the woman, it shows the face of the person. So that's not right of us to do that.
Mm.
And then here's the one where I was talking about this idea of the crown, the only one who gets to wear a crown, liberty and justice for all. And this was just one of absolute, like, several that were doing that kind of stuff. And the last note I will make, actually, about we don't have to go on and on. I think we're making our point.
Yeah.
So Miss Magazine shared, you know uh all the signs, and I furious, fearless, defiant, favorite
Mm.
protest signs. And I'm once again asking for matriarchy. Here's the one. And then this was about Germany 1933. If that's what you wonder, you're doing it now.
What are you
This
doing? Okay.
I don't know. Being silent, I don't know. I thought I Yeah.
Yeah,
uh,
just quietly marching with a small printed sign. Okay.
we started a country to get away from this shit. I actually don't follow that one. The Lying King, freedom of the press, We are the power. They tried to bury us. They didn't know we were seeds. And then peace is power. Okay, I have a real democracy dies when good
Oh
people
my God,
stay silent.
please. This
Okay,
is,
dodgers should not command our military.
we are the grown-ups.
Okay, so I think this is yeah. So I think this gives a good, pretty good idea of what's going on. So yeah, so the point I'm trying to make is that I am not into this peace, peace, peace. You know, and I'm not feeling this kind of when there's so much war. Of course, we want peace, but holding up this kind of flower powery stuff is not going to help, all these kind of beautiful signs, beautiful flowers, beautiful stuff. And it kind of undermines really any other way to do stuff, and undermines all the people in Minnesota who were fighting hard. It
Exactly.
undermines like the Palestine encampments who were fighting hard, and these were peaceful marches, but they were violently screwed over. They're talking about
Exactly.
censorship. There were celebrities, of course, who came out to these marches, whereas there are actual celebrities who have been totally shut down, like Susan Sarandon and all that have been cancelled over Palestine. So, yeah, there's a lot of hypocrisy. Somebody's asking us, what do you suggest that people should do instead? You know?
Well, that's always my favorite answer, which is to boycott. um, just I think we could all start small, join mutual aid groups, local community organizing. There are a lot of really small community organizations that, if you are concerned about issues like immigrant rights or gun violence, there are very small but mighty organizations that do a lot of work that you can support,
Sure.
that you can work with. Protecting your neighbors from ICE. I mean, there's all these millions of ways that you can do it. You can get a
Absolutely.
whistle. You can, make sure that your community is safe. There's trainings on how to help people, to further train people when they are detained by ICE. There are groups that are working with gun violence. There are groups that are working in schools. Elite Learners is one of them. Kavi is another. There are several organizations that do really good work. You can fund them. You can make donations. You can volunteer your time with them. There are really, many, many, many ways to show up that are small but meaningful within your community, and not so performative at all. Of course, if the ballot is your thing, you can run for office. You can start volunteering for campaigns for people that you think
Yeah.
should be in power. We saw a lot of that here very successfully with Zoran
I think a lot
Mamdani.
of people who are part of this, I agree with some of the comments, are definitely doing some of these things as well.
And that's great.
And I think that's pretty great. I just think like the next question is, and then how to make that move differently. Who are the community organizers? What makes everybody come out for the No Kings and not for a Palestine encampment? I think this is like that's the starting question for everyone. What makes 8 million people come out for this when it's on the backs of a genocide? Where were they? Where was this energy in the last 2.5 years? Where has this energy been? People have Leka Kurdia was in ICE detention, the Palestinian, for 1 year. Where was all this energy? Those protests were, of course, there, but they were small. They were not like this. And we're just talking about the size. Why this size? Why this? And I think people get to, what makes me absolutely ticked off about these protests is that people get to go to them without ever, because suddenly they're like, oh, this doesn't have to be about Palestine. That's complicated. That stuff is complicated. you know that stuff is this and that, and you get to escape, and you get to have the strategic amnesia, and you get to go do this stuff. So
Well,
it's
I
been
also want to add to your answer of why this and not that is because one really carries risk. There is real risk
exactly
to you and to your livelihood, perhaps, and to your body, and there is a real risk to your reputation.
sure.
If you are an immigrant, to your ability to stay in the country. If you are a naturalized citizen, to that, there is a real risk that can be quite intense in one of those protests versus the other. The other is
True.
risk free. And so, yeah, so it's easier to draw yourself out to that than to the other thing. It's easy to also, as you said, be like, well, that's complicated and I don't
Yeah.
really know the history, and, to just like disavow or distance yourself from it as if it's not
Yeah.
you. Um, I will never be able to answer the question, why this and why not Epstein? That's really where I'm unable to answer that
You
question.
know, Black Lives Matter. I mean, it's like, it's just, there are so many moments just in the past 10 years that I would say deserved more than the energy that Trump is getting. He gets to feel like a king. He's like, no kings. He's like, no, but I'm a king. It's like
Right. Yeah.
it validates something too. So, and I think somebody was saying that, people don't care unless it affects them. But I actually disagree, only because I think a lot of the people who are going to these marches is because has not viscerally impacted them. When the causes viscerally impact you,
Yeah,
you're going to have to do things differently. There's an ease in this, you know, and there isn't a real sense of the outcome or what we're getting out of it. It's just kind
exactly.
of cathartic, rage, get together, and all those things are fine. I just want more. And I think we can end on that note.
Yes,
Let's
I
just
agree.
want more. And yeah, and white feminism captures all of these problems. You don't have to be white to be a white feminist. It's just about liberalism and
Absolutely.
mainstream talking points. But thanks to everyone for joining and for letting us vent. And and thanks to everyone who's venting in the chats. So we'll
Thank
see
you,
you
everyone.
next week, hopefully. Yeah.
See you soon.
Bye.